start right now. So grab a seat, tune in, and get ready for Los Angeles' largest surf-specific celebration. Welcome to the 2022 Hermosa Beach Surfers Walk of Fame induction ceremony. Today we honor the past, celebrate the present, and inspire the future of our South Bay surfing community. Thank you to everybody who made it last night to the movie premiere and the community center. We had over 300 stoked surfers, and if you missed it, you're going to hear about it today. So hope you're there next year. It was an amazing turnout, and speaking of amazing and speaking about awesome, it's such a special moment for all of us to get together today. It's been almost 3 years, and I can't speak for you, but I missed you. I missed this gathering. And when I look out and see faces smiling and shaking hands and hugging, I imagine you guys feel the same way as I do. This is a very special group of folks in a very special community. So, man, thank you for being here. And I'm not gonna lie, the pandemic was gnarly for all of us. Very, very gnarly times. Lots of hardship and uncertainty. But despite that, an interesting phenomenon occurred. The human interest for adventure grew. People wanted to go outside and explore. And subsequently, many found the sport and the culture of surfing. Surfing experienced a popularity boom that had not been seen since the days of Gidget. Surfing absolutely exploded. Ask anybody. Look at the El Porto lineup. It's gnarly out there. One statistic I read from an industry source stated that the pandemic gave birth to over 2 million new surfers. As a result, this catapulted our surfing economy in ways never before seen. In some cases, it was taking up to 6 months for a custom surfboard. Shapers were booked. You couldn't get a shaping appointment with anybody. It was gnarly. The soft top revolution was on. They were almost impossible to find. Surf shops literally had prepaid waiting lists for catch surf surfboards. And in some cases, I even heard cash bidding wars over wave storms. It's unbelievable, but just look out at the lineup, they're everywhere. The soft top was an amazing introduction to our sport. It turned on a lot of new folks to our amazing lifestyle of surfing. Surf shops sold more wetsuits, leashes, tail pads, skateboards, and bike racks than ever before. Enrollment in surf schools went through the roof, and a parking spot at El Porto became the most valuable piece of oceanfront real estate in the South Bay. Welcome back, everybody. This is truly amazing. It truly is a pleasure and an honor where our civic leadership recognizes the value of surfing and our culture. So let's hear it for everybody who supports us. Right now, it is an honor and a pleasure to introduce our Master of Ceremonies, the 2004 Surfers Walk of Fame inductee, South Bay legend, all-round awesome guy, your favorite, John Joseph!
Thank you, Yanni. As with Yanni, I want to welcome you all back, finally. It's been a long 3 years. For those of you that don't realize it, these people were notified in October of 2019 that they were selected. And so it's been a long wait for them. So this is very important to them and to us. This year we have a terrific program. We have Nick Christensen coming on, being introduced. By Ted Robinson. Now, Ted Robinson, Mike Purpose and Ted Robinson are really only the two guys in the history of surfing to win money on both tours, the longboard tour and the shortboard tour. And so Ted will be introducing. Mike was, by the way, was the very first one to do that, and Ted was the second. And he'll be introducing Nick Christensen. Second up is Josette Lagardere, and she's from Australia, and because of COVID regulations and a medical problem with one of her family members, she won't be here today. But introducing her will be Scott Kerwin and Peter Townend. Charlie, Bing is not here. Bing was going to introduce Charlie, but Charlie Quesnel will be our third speaker up, and he will be introduced by Mark Turner. And then lastly, a friend of mine for 65 years. I'm so proud that he's on the pier and have a chance to introduce him, John Teague. So first up, we'd like to have Nick Christensen and Ted Robinson coming up to the stage. Folks, Ted Robinson.
Thanks, John. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Good to see you guys, and great to see some familiar faces out there. With the help of some friends here, I learned some stuff about Nick I didn't even know, but he started surfing in the 6th grade. It was 1973, and it was in Playa del Rey, surfing Ballona Creek and Toes, and spent a lot of time surfing Malibu, Doom, Zuma, El Porto, and he became a powerful force everywhere he went. He always commanded respect and got respect in the lineup. He was going to let you know he was there for sure. His surfing has always been about power and style. We did a lot of amateur comps together. Actually, we did tons of it in my VW Bug, my little Beetle Bug. I don't think he drove once, but that's all right. At age 17, he saved a bunch of money bussing tables at local restaurants, and he went to Bali, and that was a really big deal. He's traveled all over the world, but that was really cool. In 1984, he built a house with his buddies, his partners in Mexico, from the ground up, and they still have that house and they still go there all the time. That was super cool. And then Nick, he did the world tour. He did it for several years with some great results. He might touch on that. And then he's also a member of the UCLA surf team. And Nick is just very successful at everything he does, including being a great husband, a great father, and just a really great businessman. He's very successful at everything he does. He was an early investor at Surfline, and he helped them grow to where they are now. Nick is also very gifted in surfing, volleyball, golf, and many other things, including actually the banjo, where he was actually in a band in high school. That band name was High Sierra. He is very inspirational. He's always positive. He has great energy and a great vibe. Nick is very committed to his faith. He walks by faith and not by sight. I am very blessed and honored to call him my good friend. You're up, Nick.
You know, when you turn on the TV today and you turn on different internet sites, you see a lot of big waves. Nazarene, Jaws, everybody's got the videos. Everybody loves to see the big stuff, how big it is and everything. I'll tell you what, none of that would be possible without forecasting. When you forecast swells, you forecast the water, it's unbelievable what people can do because they always have a jump on things. I want to tell you a little quick story. I only got one story. 1985, I got a call from my friend Peter Boulier, and he said, "Hey Nick, I want to go on a surf trip down to Baja. I want to go down with this guy named Sean Collins. He's really good. He's a guru. I'm telling you, we're going to score." I was like, "Bam, I'm there. No problem. Tell me what to do, Peter." He goes, "Just come. We're going to go first week of April." I had been done trying to surf the tour. I did all right. I'm like, "Hey, right now I want to do other stuff. I want to go back to UCLA, finish school. But Peter, I'm there." So we went on the surf trip to a secret spot down in Baja that we got unbelievable surf. And this guy named Sean Collins was amazing. He'd sit around at night and he would talk, but basically teach. We would listen. Teach. We would listen. This is what's going on. This is why you need to know an interval. This is why you need to know swell direction. This is why you need to know the following. And I hit it off with this guy. He was amazing. We had an amazing trip. We came home. He lives in Orange County. We got together and I said, "Sean, let's hook up." We hooked up for lunch. And then Sean said, "I'm trying to figure out a way to monetize this thing." That point in the 90s, there was only one thing going on. 976 numbers, and they weren't good. 976 boobs, 976 bad stuff, 976 bad stuff. The parents hated it. They all hated it. We're like, we got to do something. How about a 976 surf? So what we did was, we got guys to answer phone booths up and down the California coast. We call them at 6 in the morning and say, ring, ring, hey, oh, is this John? Oh, great, John, how's the wave? Is it foggy? What's the surf like? Da-da-da-da-da. How's the tide? And we call 14 different phone booths up and down the coast, get them together by 6 in the morning, give it to Sean. Sean would put his spin on things, and we put a recorded lineup at 7:30 every morning. 976 surf. One idea I had was, I'm going to do a mailer. I'm going to mail a $1 bill to 200 surf shops. And I'm going to say, first call's on us, give us a try. Well then, 2 employees at Surfline, Surf 976 Surf in the beginning. 2 employees, 5 employees, 10 employees. This thing started getting traction. And then Sean said, I got to have a big meeting with you. I got to change something. That's not good. That's not good. What do you want to change? I go down to his house, we meet, we talk. Sean goes, hey, there's a new thing going on now. It's called the internet. I want to get my cameras to stream. I want to get a streaming live photo so these guys can see the waves. My first reaction was, no, Sean, no, we need more phone booths. Phone booths. This internet thing is not going to stick. It won't stick. I didn't even know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. What the mouse is. What is this? Sean goes, Nick, trust me, we're going to do this. All right. I pull my head out of the sand. I pull my head out of the phone booth, and away we go. He gets Seal Beach, Pipeline, Huntington, Santa Cruz, and the thing takes off. Sean goes, I'm changing the name from obviously 976 Surf to Surfline. The thing took off. It went 1,000,000 miles an hour, 10 employees, 50 employees, 100 employees. The thing just went to the moon. It went to the moon because of Sean Collins. Let's give Sean a round of applause. That guy was my good friend. He passed away about 10 years ago, but because of him, the world has changed, and we're all getting more waves. We're all getting more waves. In closing, I just want to tell you about a little journey I've had. It's been rough. 246 days ago, I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, hey, we got to check out some things, do a little scan, run some tests on you, and he says, hey, I think you got lung cancer. I think you got lung cancer, stage 3, and I said, wow, that's not good, but I got a lot of faith. What do we do? He said, come back in a week. Came back in a week. He said, yeah, we want to take something out of your neck, which I think you got throat cancer too. I said, all right, that's not good. What stage? He goes, stage 3, that's not good. Oh, well, what do we do? I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to start praying. I'll start praying to the man upstairs, and I'm going to tell everybody to start praying for me. I said, okay. About 118 days ago, I went in and had half my lung taken out. I went into recovery. They gave me about 6 weeks. They said, time to go back into surgery. Let's take out your neck. Opened up my neck, took out the cancer out of there. Did the chemo in between. Trusting God. Some people might say, well, where are you going with this, Nick? What are you telling me? I'm telling you, I'm a blessed man. I'm a blessed man. I'm a blessed man, and I tell you what, the last number I'll give you is a last count, and I tried to count this high. I had 116,000 people praying for me, and all you guys are here. All right? All you guys are here. So, nobody knows how many heartbeats we got left. God's got the script. We all know that. And by the way of the cross, we'll see him someday. But I tell you this. I will tell you this. I'm still healing. I'm still breathing. I know God's got me. And as long as I'm here, I will always be a surfer.
Thank you very much. Presenting Nick with his Walk of Fame plaque is the City of Hermosa Beach Mayor, Mike DeToy. We lost 5 members of our Walk of Fame. We lost 2 real giants. Greg Knoll, who gave me my first job up the street here back in 1961, and Hap Jacobs, who was just a dear friend of mine. We lost him in the past year. We also lost my next door neighbor on 8th Street for a number of years, where both my sons were born and grew up, John McFarland. And if you were in the South Bay and you surfed, this next guy probably shaped one of your boards, Phil Becker. We lost Phil Becker. And prior to that, we lost Patrick O'Connor, a pioneer. He was a little bit older gentleman, but we lost him, and he hung in there until his 90s. We'd like to introduce our next inductee. That would be Josette Lagardere. And starting off on her California days will be Scott Kerwin of the iconic Kerwin family, that about half of them have a plaque on the pier here. And then after him, when she moved to Australia, world champion Peter Townend will be speaking on her behalf with some words she wants to relay to you guys. So Scott, come on up.
Similar to Josette, I have had the privilege and pleasure of growing up here in Hermosa Beach in the 1960s during the golden age of surfing. I'm here because I was the one that put the nomination package together for Josette, which is required if you have somebody in mind that you think should be on the Walk of Fame. You need to prepare. You need to put together a nomination. And a package with photos and references and all that kind of stuff. So Josette is a couple years older than me. I didn't really know her back then. But I did see her on many occasions in the mid-1960s, and she could easily hold her own in the water with all the top surfers of the day. But my most vivid memory of her was surfing at the 1966 Laguna Masters Surfing Contest that was held down here at the Regina Breakwater, which was her home break. The chart house and that giant block of condominiums that's down there on the beach now that cover the beach wasn't there. It was a big parking lot. And actually, I was talking to Herschel Mann before just about half an hour ago, and he remembers that that parking lot, all the cars would be lined up, and when the surf was big, when the sets were coming, all the guys would start honking their horns, so the guys in the water would know that the waves were coming. But anyway, that large parking lot accommodated a pretty big crowd, and also some really big television cameras. And so basically ABC Wide World of Sports was there to cover the event and for a national broadcast. So in the finals, Josette was up against Joyce Hoffman, who at the time was, and basically through the 60s, was the reigning queen of competitive surfing. And she was pretty much unbeatable at the time. So it made quite an impression in the surfing world and here in the South Bay when Josette won the contest. And she won a color TV, not one of those cheap black and white things that they still had for sale. She got color TV, and she gave that to her mom. Later, she competed in the World Contest later that year, and she got second place behind the new world champion, who was Joyce Hoffman. Josette was a member of the prestigious Weber competition team, and she pretty much caught the traveling bug then, because she was doing promotional tours for Dewey on the East Coast, and traveled with several of the club members to compete in the annual Makaha contest. And that was the Makaha contest, and Duke were also covered at that time. It must have been a pretty good moneymaker for ABC, because they used to cover the ABC Wide World of Sports. Somewhere along the line, she was also a member of the Jacobs competition team, and she still has has a Teague jacket hanging in the closet at home. In 1968, Josette made a visit to Australia and decided she wanted to stay, settling in with the thriving surfing community on the Gold Coast as she continued her winning ways in surfing competitions. She wanted me to make sure that I told everyone how happy and grateful she is to be recognized on the Walk of Fame in her hometown. And with that, I'll turn it over to PT.
Hello, everybody. First off, I got to give a shout out to Nick Christensen. Those two guys, Ted Robertson and Nick Christensen, were part of what was known as the NSSA national team in the glory days of the 80s. And I was their coach. And I can tell some stories, but we might get in trouble. But anyway, it's an honor for me to be here and up here speaking here in Hermosa Beach for this induction day on behalf of Josette. Josette left here when she was just this little beach girl teenager in the South Bay and moved to my hometown in the late 60s. And I was just a young teenager surfing the points of Coolangatta, and I remember clearly myself and Rabbit Bartholomew and a bunch of our other mates. Rainbow Bay in those days, it wasn't the super bank. Each point had its own little distinct crew that hung out. But round at Rainbow Bay there was a flat that had Josette, Phyllis O'Donnell, and the Sun Sisters, Martha and Rel. And us young teenagers, we were following those young girls around going, my God, if we only had any game, we'd date them. But that didn't work out that way because we were too young. In 1969, the Queensland Championships were held right there at Snapper Rocks. And I went in my first ever surf contest and lost my first heat. And Josette was now relocated to Australia, and she won the women's division of the Queensland titles and got to represent Queensland to go to Margaret River, which today Margaret River starts for the WSL. She won the Australian title the same year that Nat Young won that same Australian title in Margaret River. She came back to Coolangatta and was a hero to all of us because she was representing Queensland. And she had a huge influence from that point on for the rest of the women of Queensland. She sent me this great picture of her holding that Jacob's team jacket, but she also sent me this short message which I want to read to you. She says, hi Peter, PT, thank you so much for speaking on my behalf. It's an honor for me. We go back a long time. I met you when I was 19 or 20. I'll add a little thing there. I wasn't even old enough to drink in Australia yet. Over 55 years ago, and I watched you and the rest of the boys. Rabbit Bartholomew, Andrew McKinnon, Michael Peterson, etc. Grow up with surfing and become famous surfers, a part of a beautiful culture. We had the best surf living in the late 60s and not having to experience the crowds of today. We used to surf Rainbow Bay with no one out, if you can imagine that, if you see the pictures of the Super Bank today. Now you live in my home stomping grounds and I live in yours. The South Bay it all began with me, and I never forget the good times I had there, surfing with the boys in the Bay City Surf Club in Hermosa Beach. I was hoping my brother John and family could have been there with me, but COVID played its part. I know I'm missing something very special. Happy surfing, Josette. I'm going to send one of these to her in the mail, and I'll make sure that her award gets to her in my hometown of Coolangatta. Hopefully when I go, I haven't gone for the first time in my life because of COVID in 40 years, but I'm planning on getting there real soon, and I'll get to hang out with Josette. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Peter Townend. Very well stated, and Mr. Kerwin. Presenting the plaque again will be Mayor Mike. Mayor, Mr. Mayor. A small change in the program with this next inductee, Charlie Quesnel, also known as CQ. Bing Copeland was initially going to present him. He was in Mexico last week and unable to return, and we all know the reason, and we'll leave it at that. If you read too much down there, certain things happen. So he's in a hotel room just up the street, and he can't make it this morning. So stepping in his place is Mark Turner for Charlie Quesnel. Charlie and Mark, come on up, please.
Thank you, JJ. Good seeing everybody. So this is from Bing. In 1960, when I was just getting started in the surfboard business, I was approached by my friend Bob Clark. Bob wanted me to build a small board for his girlfriend's son, Charlie. Charlie was an 11-year-old little gremmy with a part-time job at the 22nd Street restaurant, and Bob asked me if I was willing to build Charlie a board for time payments, and so I said sure. So we built a perfect little beginner board, and as promised, Charlie faithfully brought in what he could every time he got paid. About this time, I was being hounded to advertise by the surf publications, so after a few payments, I realized that this little guy was so darn cute that I could use him in a few surf bags for the balance he owed on his board. And as the years passed, he became a major member of the Bing surf team, where he traveled up and down the coast competing in all the surf contests. Charlie eventually became a valued employee in our factory as well. And I've been hoping to get Charlie on the Hermosa Beach Walk of Fame for years, and I am proud now that he's finally made it. It's my honor. Bing closes by saying it's my honor to participate in the induction of that grown-up little gremmy who is now 72. I think it's really 73, is it not, Charlie? 72 and a half, and still surfing like a teenager. You know, I first met Charlie when we were growing up in Manhattan, and we were mat surfing at about 9 or 10 years old at Marine Street in Manhattan. You know, I kept hearing about this super hot, goofy footer who surfed on Hermosa Pier. And his name was The Flea, okay? And of course, as those of you of a certain vintage know, The Flea is what Charlie's nickname was. But I assure you, he wasn't just another pretty face. He was a top-tier surfer who went on to represent Bing proudly in contests all over the country, both coasts and Hawaii, of course. You know, after graduating from Maricosta High School and wreaking a little bit of havoc here and there, a lot of us ended up in the islands. It's kind of like around here, you either went to the mountains or Hawaii after you graduated from high school, and we ended up on Maui. And I can tell you that finding a house to rent on Maui in 1968 was a big challenge. It was almost impossible. But that wasn't a problem for Charlie Quesnel. He had an answer for that. He just camped out at the boat ramp at Honolulu Bay for 6 months, you know, when he first got there. And I would say that that's commitment. The Makaha Championships of 66, 67, and 68, and the Duke Invitational of 68, to name just a few of the high-profile contests that Charlie participated in. And he always did well in those contests. And CQ, as he is known to many, hasn't slowed down one bit. Living on Maui with his beautiful wife Sharon for the past 30 or so years, he surfs as much now as he ever did. And at age 73, he's riding a shortboard. And you guys know that that's an accomplishment at this advanced age, I would say. And he's killing it. I've seen the photographs, and I think you have too, and some of this stuff. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Charlie Quesnel.
Oh my God, this is so humbling. I can't even begin to tell you. And please, I don't want to embarrass anyone or make anyone feel bad, but I look around and I feel like I'm the kid in the group here. No offense. I think it's probably the many years of living in Hawaii, most of my adult life, that has been a less stressful lifestyle, maybe. Before I forget, I want to say thank you to Mark. He kind of did a total last-minute stand-in. I'm really bummed that Bing wasn't here, but I'll talk to him later about that one. You really supported me in my surfing career, and it's greatly appreciated. Also, I want to acknowledge Henry Ford, Sparky Hudson, and I wasn't sure I'd see this day, but I'm thrilled, really thrilled. Honestly, I thought I might make it here in a posthumous manner, maybe. I only wish was that my mom would be here. She'd be over the moon about this, trust me. So again, thank you. I'm very grateful to all of you. One of my fondest memories of the early days in Hermosa was my first real job, like Mark was talking about. I worked at Frank and Goldie's, the surfboarder. I was about 10 and a half years old, flipping burgers and washing dishes down there, and I forget how much I was probably making, like, I don't know, 25, 35 cents an hour, and I was stoked. I thought it was, you know, yeah, it was a big deal. And I'd wash the dishes in the back rooms on the weekends and during the summer months. And eventually Sparky Hudson and I learned to flip their famous burgers, the surfboard. And I got to see all of our surf heroes who hung out and surfed there at 22nd Street every day. Donald Takayama, Ricky Hatch, Mike Doyle, Bing, Henry, I hope you're here wherever you are. You know, the list could go on and on, honestly. They were all members of the Double Deuce Danglers, one of what I know to be one of probably the first surf clubs in Hermosa. There was also the other Manhattan group, I can't remember their name, I apologize. Dapper Dans, thank you, yes. And all I could think about and hope for was how my job was letting me make enough money to buy a new board and then go on to my next surf trip. And if anybody remembers Bing's surf shop up on the highway next to Greg Knowles, you guys remember that? And then later when he took over the old Bassett Colac car dealership site and turned it into this Surfing Bonanza showroom, that was the place for me. I hung out there every chance I had after school, on the weekends, all summer, and learning whatever I could about the surfboard industry. Hermosa Beach means a lot to me. It's my hometown. It's where I grew up. It's where I learned to surf. It's where I began my career in the surfing magazine ads that Mark mentioned about, with the help of Bing and Duke Boyd, and later on with my own ads, and eventually competitively surfing in the USSA and the WSA contests under the Bing banner. I felt like we were the three musketeers, David, Steve Slickemeyer, and I. We were like the core of his team, as the three crazy goofy foods. I learned so much from him in the board building business, and he's one of the greatest surfing pioneers I know of, and a good friend to this day, nearly 60 years later. God, does that sound old? We're still 6 feet above ground, Bing. What a blessing. I believe that all of us, many Grammys and surf Nazis that made up all of the surf clubs, Gold Bay City Surf Club, and surfboard builders, surf teams here throughout the South Bay, starting in the late 50s and through the early 70s and beyond, we helped put Hermosa Beach on the map. Everybody refers to Huntington Beach now. We was Hermosa Beach, guys. That's what I know. That's where I came from. And we made it the surfing capital of the world at that time. But I believe because of the impact we had on all that we had all made during that time, really Hermosa was equally the surfing capital of the world. All the board builders, the manufacturers were here in the South Bay. And so many surfboards were built here and shipped to parts unknown. We were the hub of the surfboard building industry at that time. Every year, Bing would sponsor myself and others to the annual Makaha Surf Championships held around Christmas time on Oahu in Hawaii, and later on during the same time, the Smirnoff Championships at Sunset Beach, the Mark spoke of. This meant we got to go to Hawaii, which was really the mecca for any surfer back then. It probably still is today, I would imagine. We would spend nearly 4 weeks during Christmas time in Hawaii surfing. Are you kidding me? What a life for a teenager, you know? What a dream come true, to be that fortunate, and more so to be representing Hermosa Beach. It was only natural that once I graduated from Maricosta High School in the summer of '67, not to age myself, but I moved to Hawaii. It was a no-brainer if you love surfing like I do. In the spring of 1970, and after a great winter of surf on Maui, and with the help of Bing, I came back to Hermosa and was able to start my own surfboard shop, Charlie Q Surfboards. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it had just a Q and a half face silhouette. And for the next 2+ years, built and sold boards under my name. And I was right down the street from Bing's factory over there on Cypress and off of 8th Street. Living and growing up in both Manhattan and Hermosa during the 50s, 60s, and 70s were some of the best times of my life. Especially being a young surfer and able to represent Bing Surfboards, the Bay City Surf Club, and Hermosa Beach. It's all I could have asked for as a surf rat kid from here. When I look at where the surfing world is today, we're no longer considered a bunch of we're no longer considered a bunch of dropouts, mavericks, or renegades, someone whose father wouldn't have allowed her daughter to go out with. You know what I'm talking about. One of those bad guys, one of the surf rats then that I'm very proud to have been a part of. I'm also very fortunate to have grown up in Hermosa Beach during this time as well. I couldn't give it up for anything else at this point. I've pretty much lived and surfed in Hawaii nowadays, and for a long time on Maui. And still to this day, at 72.5 years old, I live and breathe surfing with the help of Jimmy Lewis Surfboards and my old friend Jimmy, who still sponsors me. And for the past 22 years, I've been going to G-Land, as you mentioned earlier, on the island of Java twice a year to get away from the surf crowds of Maui. I imagine you guys can probably relate. Making these surf sabbaticals, as I call them, in order to maintain my sanity and well-being. One of my biggest fears these days, how many G-Land surf trips I got left in me. When my wife and Sharon and I leave this weekend behind, I'm actually headed straight back to Java for another surf trip, and I look forward to it. So again, I want to say mahalo to Hermosa Beach, to the Surfers Walk of Fame Induction Committee, and to everyone who made it here today, and especially to my family and my friends. Thank you as well. And I'm very humbled by all of this. I can't even begin to tell you. And I'm also honored by it. And the fact that I have the opportunity to kind of make my little mark on the planet, I guess, it's pretty humbling. Trust me. It means a lot to me. Thank you, and aloha.
Mr. Mayor will present the plaque. Mayor Mike. And I'm very happy to introduce my friend for 65 years, John Teague. Presenting John because we go back. We grew up just a half a block apart, just behind the breakwater, and we've been dear friends for over. Regardless of our political views, and you all know which side the fence we both are on, we still love each other. All right, and I'll leave it at that.
Where is he?
John started surfing in 1950, or 60, I'm sorry, on surf mats right here that he rented from Juicy James. And within a month he was standing up on them, and he got his first surfboard. And the Bay City's older guys, before Bay Cities was formed, really didn't like people from South Redondo and South Hermosa surfing down here. So he moved down to 2nd Street with a brand new Lyman surfboard that he'd gotten. And I started surfing in the mid-50s, and I have never seen an individual pick up the sport so fast. And a great example was the very first surf contest he ever won was a 1962 inaugural, very first one, International Surf Festival, Junior Division. He and I both surfed in that. He won it. I didn't make the finals. 58 years later, I'm still involved in it as one of the directors of the surf festival. But he was the very first one, and a couple years later, he won the men's division. So he's one of the only guys that ever have won a juniors and a men's in that. Later that summer, he went to Huntington Beach, and he and Bobby Moore, Margaret Scotland, and I stayed at my uncle's house in Huntington. And John and Bobby Moore, both South Bay guys from Bay Area Surf Club, made the finals at Huntington that year in the junior men's division, which is quite an accomplishment back there in '62 summer. Then John really hit the big time scene in the early winter of 1963, when the very first surfer trade show called Surforama at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. If you were a surfboard manufacturer or one of the few board apparel makers back then, you had a booth there. Leroy Grannis had one for photos. Hap, Greg, Bing, Dewey all had booths there. Walt Phillips had for Surfing Illustrated. It was an amazing 3-day festival inside the auditorium with surf movies, food, beer, speakers, and everything. And he decided to have a major the U.S. Midwinter Surfing Championships that year. And there were 148 entries in 10 clubs. Well, John won the juniors division, and the Walk of Fame is represented by 3 other people that also made finals. Josette, it was John's first major contest and Josette's very first contest ever. She won the women's, John won the juniors, and then John Leninger and I both made additional finals in other divisions back then. So this Walk of Fame was represented in '62, the first major. And then John started winning everywhere, up and down the coast. From Santa Barbara to San Diego, he was winning events. It was amazing. He was either in the finals or winning events everywhere, and then moved to Hawaii for a while and surfed over there and was doing very well. To tell you about John and one of his impacts, one of the very first televised surf contests was held at the Breakwater. KTTV and Bill Walsh were coming down in, I think it was '62 or '63, when it was a parking lot before the chart house. Well, the finals, and they were going to do the finals live. They didn't have tape, and they didn't have beepers or phones, and so they held the finals off for about 15 to 20 minutes, and the finals didn't happen. So they sent the 4 finalists. There were John Teague, Chris Bredesen, David Nueva, and myself out. So we surfed the heat. We went out, and then when we get in, right as the award ceremony is over, we go into the parking lot, and John and I are starting to have beers in his 55 station wagon, and David is over with the Hawaiians in the Wind and Sea van and having whatever the Hawaiians drink back then. And lo and behold, Bill Walsh and KTTV come in. And so they asked us to go out and surf a refinal that they could do it and then show live at 5 o'clock. And so we go out in the water, and of course, the Babe Magnet was still on the beach, Chris Bredesen. The 3 of us, other finalists, were in the parking lot drinking. He's surrounded by all his groupies. So he was the only sober one. So when it aired live, Chris by far outsurfed everybody. And the awards were, a phony award stand was done, and the people that were there for the first event knew what was going on. But all those people on TV, for weeks after, people would come up to me and ask me, how in the hell did Bredesen not win that event? So that's where John was. But I think what defines, and lastly, what I think defines his career, in 1964, there was so many great surfers in Hawaii and California, and they decided to do a surf movie taking 2 surfers starting in Santa Cruz in the summer and surfing their way down the coast, ending up at the Huntington Beach U.S. Surfing Championships. And they picked Ricky Gregg, who was one of the most famous surfers in the world, one of the best of all time. And what really solidified John as a true legend was that all the surfers of that era, they could have picked to be his partner coming down the coast, it was John Teague. And so they stopped at all the major surf breaks and surfed and put on exhibitions. They got to Huntington Beach, and John was a long shot. Ricky Gregg, and they put them in different brackets so they could meet in the finals. Well, Ricky got eliminated in the semis, and John made the men's final. And so that's what really put him on the map. And I'm so proud to be able to introduce John Teague, who has been one of my good friends. And one last thing. Over the years, his competitive career was cut short for a couple of reasons we all know. But over the years, we'd be surfing out here or be hanging around on the beach, even in the few, up until about 5 years ago. People would come up to me because he's always had this golden mane. He looked old. He looked old when he was 25. Okay. And people would come up to me in the water or on the beach. Who's that old guy you're surfing with? He can rip. You know, and they're referring not to rest in peace, but Rip is a terrific surfer. And with that being said, it's my dear friend, and I'm so happy for him, John Teague. John, come on up, buddy.
Well, thank you. You know, I started surfing right out here and riding on mats in 1958. And 2 years later, I finally got a surfboard in 1960. I think the reason that I got real good that fast was because of those surf mats. And the main thing was having fun. That was why I started surfing, and that's why I stayed with it. And I believe having fun is exactly why each and every one of us stay so close with this love affair we have with our Mother Ocean. So I haven't got really much to say except that's a lot of history you heard, and timelines may not be the same as I recall them, but the information was there. And that's about all I've got to say, and I feel very honored about this and very humbled by it as well. And I'm very proud to be amongst all these names that are out there that have lent something to this thing that we do love. Thank you very much.
Once again, Mr. Mayor Mike will be presenting the trophy. One comment left, and then Yanni will close the ceremony. The plaques, this year is the first time the plaques will not be going on the pier. The pier went through an inspection, and there's so many plaques out there now that the pier is unsafe. And so we're gonna remove the plaques and moving up on the walkway here by the Tim Kelly statue, we think. And that's a better location because they're halfway out on the pier. And any of you guys that were the early inductees, we can't walk that far anymore. So we're glad it's up real quick. But anyway, Lonnie's going to close it. And don't forget Spider Fest. And you'll see Lisa in this. Nicholas walk up and thank her. Because without her, this wouldn't happen. And along with Yanni, who, if you don't know who he is, he's a city commissioner for Parks and Rec.
All right, you're already
Yanni Land.
JJ, thank you very much. I'll make this quick, easy, and more importantly, fun. You guys, once again, we're here after almost 3 years. Thank you, inductees. Thank you. You guys are an inspiration. Every single speech gave me chills and brought a tear to my eye. Mayor, thank you for coming and supporting us in more ways than you know. We appreciate it.
you know?
Hey, let's party, you guys.